Well, good morning and welcome into another Michiana Unsolved. Today we have a cold case, just over 30 years, actually. We just touched on the anniversary of the murder of Ronnie Ciesielski. Ron, there are several names that people know him by. I want to introduce you to a couple people here. First, his sister, Jennifer, who's joining us. Thank you so much for being willing to talk about this case, to being able to jump on here and make the time. I know you're in the middle of your workday. I also want to introduce Nick. You are one of Ronnie's childhood friends, you too, making time in the middle of your day. So both of you, just thank you for hopping on and bringing light to this unsolved case.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I want to bring up some video from that day. Jennifer, maybe I can start with you a little bit and have you tell me a little bit about what you remember back in May 28th, 1994. This is some video from the scene of that night. What can you tell us?
Well, that night I was at a party and I remember wearing a watch, and I never wore a watch then. And this guy was preaching to me, and I was kind of getting upset about it because he just preached all the time. And so I look at my watch, it's like 10:20, 10:25. And then these girls pull up that I didn't get along with, and my friend walked towards me and said, "Do you want to leave?" And I said, "Yeah, let's leave." So I leave and go home, and my house is empty because they're all there. And come to find out, a couple of the girls that were at the party were one of the ones that gave some people an alibi as well. And it was weird how it all went down on my end because I never wore a watch. I happened to have one on. I looked at my watch. It was the exact same time they pulled up. And that's when it happened. So I'm kind of struggling with that on my end.
Yeah, I sat down with Lieutenant Kayla Miller with Michiana Crime Stoppers not too long ago, about last week. Obviously, their cold case team working on this case right now, and I say that this cold case is warm because kind of what you insinuated is that there is persons of interest in this case. What she told me is that they just need a little bit more. And sometimes that's hard to hear in cases like this. But as you guys know, you need a bunch of evidence. You need to convince a jury. You need to be able to make these arrests, right? So there's a lot of moving parts. It's not just as easy as we know, right? We need some more information. So what she was telling me is around 10:35, officers were called here to this home for reports of a shooting. And that's where they found Ronnie, who had been shot. And they tell me that while he was still alive, they were performing life-saving measures. Unfortunately, he passed away at that scene. Looking back at this old video, hearing from the detectives who were interviewed back in 94, they identified 3 black males who were seen fleeing from that area. There were reports of a vehicle speeding away from that area, and that remains the information that they have today. Again, persons of interest, several interviews have taken place, but they're looking for people to come forward with more. Is that kind of what you guys both remember as well?
Yes.
Yeah. And what's hard, too, is that with situations like this, right, the streets talk. Can you guys talk a little bit about that? You guys probably know a lot more information. And I want to be careful, too, with what we reveal here and what we say. But that has to be hard, too, because you probably hear things since you guys were so close. Nick, obviously you, and then Jennifer being his sister.
Yeah, even watching this video is really, really rough. This is footage that I've never seen.
Wow.
Ron and I were friends since as long as I can remember. They lived probably 10 or 12 houses down the street on the opposite side of the street as my parents growing up, and we were like brothers. Ron was a very genuine person. He would do anything for anybody. He had a crazy sense of humor. He was just a really solid guy. He did some crazy, wild stuff. As kids, we were, dirt bike buddies and, riding four-wheelers
Mopeds.
and mopeds, like you name it, customizing cars and things of that nature back then. And, to see that video now 30 years later, he was just a great guy. He was a great baseball player. He was a welder. He was a father. He was just starting life. And then to see that and to reflect back on that, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough, because, you think that after 30 years you would be okay with seeing stuff like that. And really you're not.
You were saying that you don't even drive down that street anymore.
That's correct. Yeah. I tend to avoid that because the house actually still looks the same as it did, back then. And it's I have an uncle that lives a block away from that house, and that house was only about 4 or 5 blocks away from where Ronnie actually grew up. That's only a few blocks away from their house, from their home. Same side of the street, same connecting street on Linden. Like you could probably ride a pedal bike there in a minute flat if you had to.
Wow.
It's very, very close. So
yeah, Jennifer, let's turn things to you just a little bit. So that wasn't your home. I guess I was jumping to conclusions myself. But that wasn't your home. So he was at a friend's house. Is that what was going on?
Yes. He was at a friend's house, yes, and he spent a lot of time there, and and he had a friend that was just a couple years older, but he already had his own house and lived there, and but yeah, going back to like people who know something, Ronnie had so many friends, like he had more friends than I could even imagine to have. I mean, he really did, and he had all kind. I mean, during a time when race was an issue, like it seemed like people kind of segregated, kind of stayed with their own race. A lot of times there were, like I said, I told you there was a fight that broke out our senior year, and it was racial related, but Ronnie was friends with everybody. He had so many friends from every race. And so I know in that neighborhood, he had so many friends, and it's weird that after 30 years, nobody has come forward at all. When I guarantee you, somebody that would call Ronnie a friend, a good friend,
Absolutely.
knows something, and they still haven't come forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess that's what's really frustrating, because I've grown such a passion for doing what I can to use my platform to highlight these cases. Media, obviously, when this happens, we're there, right? As you see in this video. Yeah. But 30 years later, who's still being an advocate besides the family and friends, right? So to be able to use this platform to continue to highlight these cases has been and continues to be really important to me. And that's where I get so frustrated with things like Michiana Crime Stoppers and the ability to submit tips via your phone, or your computer in the privacy of your own home. That is a little bit frustrating that people who clearly know something don't say something. And this is kind of just a question we continue to talk about, is why? Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, that drives me crazy. Especially today, we all have kids that are probably 19 years old, a little younger, a little older. Can't they imagine what it would feel like to have somebody that he didn't have an enemy? I guarantee you he did not have one person that didn't like him. He was so much fun to be around. He was such a great person. And nobody's going to come forward. Can they put themselves in our shoes and realize today, 30 years later, come on, help us.
Nick, what are your thoughts? It's tough. It's really tough. I'm 50 years old now. And so at 50 years old, I look at things way differently than I did, obviously, 30 years ago. And the thing is, there's no closure, with what happened. There's no closure. There's no explanation. There's no nothing. So, I know, with Jenny, I know Pop just passed away here recently, so, he passed away with no closure on the death of his son. Mom is here, and people have had to have struggled with this for 30 years, and it's tough, and you hope that somebody would just do the right thing, say their information, come out with what little information that they have, because I know that it has to be close. Like, again, like Jenny said, we were a very close knit neighborhood, like, and it still is, like I ate dinner over the Ciesielski house. I mean, many, many times with Pop, bringing RC colas for, everybody to vent, and it's because everybody was family then.
Yeah.
And so it's tough that after all these years that there's still no closure, for this family. It's just tough. So my hope and my prayer in this is that, with the new exposure, that people will reconsider, the things that they might have not felt comfortable with sharing, 30 years ago, and just give this family closure.
Yeah, and as you can see here, I put obviously those ways that you can submit an anonymous tip through Michiana Crime Stoppers. Obviously, you can call, you can go online, you can use your phone. And I always say, we're all on our phones all the time. So no one's going to think, oh, that person's on their phone. They must be submitting a tip. I know what they're doing. And it's worth noting, they don't track IP addresses. Frankly, they don't care who you are, right? They just want the information. And in return, if your tip leads to the solving of this case or an arrest, you're eligible for a $2,500 cash reward. What my hope is with cold cases is I have this, maybe it's naive, I don't know, but I have this hope that by highlighting them, people are going to be more willing today to speak out than they were in 94. Michiana Crime Stoppers was just a baby back then. They started in 83. It was kind of a new concept. You think how long it takes for people to catch on to different things, right? So I'm hoping by 2024, there's more of a push, but kind of as you guys said, look how grown you are now. Whoever's responsible has been truly living with this.
Sure.
It's almost like, come on, you have to be living with that guilt. Like, relieve yourself of that. And by doing that, you're truly going to help so many people impacted by this.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. We just want to know the truth. What happened?
Yeah. And I think you guys are such a great image of the ripple effect. And this right here, this conversation shows truly just what violence in our community does, right? It's not just the individual impact. It's not just Ronnie, right? Mm-hmm. It's your whole family. And then you see Nick over here, a childhood friend, who can't even drive down that block, or you both seen this video for the first time. That has to be so hard. Hearing what I assumed was your mom screaming in that video, which you confirmed to be true. As I said this morning when we were airing it, that sound of screaming just still hits you 30 years later, and I'm not even directly involved. This has such a wide effect in our community, and we can stop it by saying something.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. I'm really hoping people reconsider, like Nick said.
Jennifer, Nick is making me call you Jenny now, and I don't want to do that.
Good.
Jennifer, I want to pull up some video of your brother again. Hold on one sec. Give me 2 seconds while I do that, because we heard from Nick, but I want to hear a little bit more from you. Hold on one sec. We have so many different selections that we can do. Here we go. You said he did not have an enemy. He was just fun to be around. He had just friends galore. We see pictures of him playing baseball, of him wrestling. Was he always athletic? Like, tell me about your brother.
Yes, he was always athletic. Our whole family was, really. So, yeah, and he loved it. He loved to wrestle. He played baseball. That's another reason probably why he had so many friends and so many different dynamics, because he played a lot of sports, and yeah, he was good at it.
How about when you guys were kids? Did you guys always get along? Do you have a favorite memory that you guys had, or what?
Well, we definitely fought a lot. There were a lot of kids in a small house, and I remember fighting over the phone all the time, because that's before cell phones. Yeah. So it was interesting, but we got along great. Like, we were really close. We were only 13 months apart. We had a lot of the same friends. So, yeah, he was just funny. Like, at home, he was a jokester. Like, I'm sitting on the couch and he's leaving, and I'm just a grouchy teenager. And he's like, Jennifer. I finally look up, and he just throws up the peace sign, peace, and walks out of the house just to annoy me, So he was funny. He was a great guy. And he stuttered. He had a stutter. So I think that's part of the reason why he was funny to a lot of people. And if they made fun of him, he didn't care. He just cracked a joke back. You know, he wasn't mad about it. It was just, it was funny. He was a great person.
And now you guys have another sister and a brother too, right?
Two brothers.
Two brothers.
Well, more than that, actually.
Okay, so really a total full house.
Right, yeah.
And then Nick, were you saying Ronnie actually had a kid? I didn't know that he had a kid.
Yeah, two sons.
Oh, really?
Two sons. Yeah.
Gosh, how are
In
they
high
doing
school,
right now?
so that's kind of crazy, but at
two
least
sons
we
in high
got
school.
2 kids from him. Mm-hmm.
Two kids, and now he would be a grandfather.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Right, yep.
Yeah, because we were talking about this
Aaron
morning.
and Chris.
Aaron and Chris. How old would he be today?
Ronnie would be 49 today.
49. Yeah, how are his kids doing? How have they been? That's got to be really difficult for them too, searching for answers.
Because they really don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. When we talk about it, it's hard for them. Even to bring up memories, funny memories, it's hard for them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said that your dad just passed away. Your mom is still with us. So how is she doing?
Yeah. She's doing good, but like times like this are hard, really hard for all of us, you know. But yeah, she's hanging in there.
Well, again, I'm gonna throw this up on the screen here because the plea is for people to see something, say something, and it's time to do that. And I really, really, really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know this is not easy, but your willingness, Jennifer, to say, how can I help? What do you need? You know, we don't get that every day from people. You know, we get a lot of mixed reactions when we want to highlight cases. Some people just are really not for it. They don't want to be a part of it. I've been kicked off a property before as we were trying to highlight a case. And so to have you say, what can I do? Like how, yes, of course, I really appreciate that. And what people may not know, Nick, interestingly enough, has become a family friend as well. So
that's right.
Again, it's really crazy how small this community is and how this just has so much effect on people that you may meet and become a part of your lives. It's hard.
Yeah, and I think that it even speaks to who Ronnie was as a person. Because, you know, to be willing to talk about him 30 years later, you know, to try to get closure, really speaks to who he was, you know, even as a young man. Like, you know, we were kids back then. Yeah. But even being kids, like, he was a solid person. Like, he was a solid person. He was being a great father to his children, even at, you know, as a young kid, you know, and he was doing really some great things. And to get, you know, for that to happen to him so early in life before he even really got the momentum into adulthood has been, you know, it's rough. It's really rough.
So true. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. We're going to have a piece air tonight. Again, just continuing to get the word out. That piece will, of course, be WNDU.com. This is going to stay on WNDU.com as well, along all of our social media platforms. And when I hear something, you'll hear something. Actually, you'll hear something before I hear something. But, you know, just hopefully we can continue to work together and remember Ronnie. And again, I just appreciate you guys so much for taking the time. And if there is anything I can do in the future, please let me know. And if there's anything you guys want to say before I let you go, the floor is yours.
I'm just grateful for the time. I'm grateful for the time, and I'm grateful that, you know, that his case is being looked at again. You know, it's a very important case because he impacted a lot of lives, and that's important that, you know, that people aren't forgotten. You know, again, you know, you're talking 30 years. It's a, you know, and sometimes 30 years seems like a lifetime ago, and then sometimes it feels like it was yesterday. You know, so, you know, we all heal differently. We all hurt differently. But I believe that, you know, if people come forward and do the right thing, I believe that it will heal a lot of people in this process.
Well said. All right. We'll let you guys get back to work again. Thank you so much. And we'll stay on top of this and bring any updates. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.